Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal, and I am so happy to be back with you. And this week we have an incredible guest, our very own Miss Ingrid Nevar. She is a part of our group, and she'll be doing a presentation this evening. Just a little bit of background. Ingrid is an official American Sign Language interpreter. She is a quantum consciousness coach. She's also versed and a master teacher in Usui and Fire Reiki. She's also a Biofield tuner and researcher. She works at the Lightfield Foundation and also is an operator at the Conscious Technologies Company. So, welcome, Ingrid. Wow. That was a full mouthful. This- a woman of many talents. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderfully, better and better. Thank you.
That's
Thank you. Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to have you here because, like some of our guests, you are someone who has so many skills and so many talents, and it's so interesting to meet someone who you can talk to about all these different things. And so I'm sure that there are many people within our community this evening who are very familiar with some of the topics that, or some of the skills that you have. But also this evening, we're going to be discussing your experiences as a lifelong ET experiencer and also as someone who lives multidimensionally. So we've been having a lot of talk recently. A lot of people are, throwing that word around about multidimensionality, quantum jumping, all that. But I really want to sort of get your perspective and maybe give us a little bit of background as to how you became an experiencer. What is it that happened in your life? Like, what started it all?
Sure. Oh, lots and lots of things. So I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of experiences my entire life. And a number of those experiences have included other people. Um, but the earliest memories that I have are of being a toddler and being on craft frequently and being with my what I thought of as my star family. They weren't my human family, they were my star family, and they were beings of light that exuded the most amazing calmness and compassion and love and literally just light. And oftentimes, when I was experiencing stress, or if something were happening that was really that I found very triggering, I would suddenly, I felt like my memory of it is that I would be here and I would be with my biological family, and then I would be with them and I would be on the craft. And there was a lot of time spent there and a lot of instruction that I received about not talking about the things that I could do, not talking about the things that I understood and what I could see, not talking about them. And as I got older, it got a little bit more detailed. But that's that. And then some early on experiences with my biological family in terms of my dad giving me very specific instructions in dreaming and in utilizing dreams and my dream time. And because of the instruction that he gave me, when I was learning to talk, I mean, I couldn't have been more than, 1.5, 2, 3 years old. Him getting me to talk about my dreams and the things that I was dreaming, and talking about dreams was something that happened quite frequently in at home. And I didn't really find out until I was almost a teenager that other people didn't talk about those things.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's how it started.
Okay. So, would you say, because I know that you and I have known each other for a long time, and I think you'd mentioned once about how it actually happened, though. I think you were in a car, and I mean, was it a situation where you had, like, you saw a craft or lights in the sky? How did it, like, what was your first experience? Because I know you mentioned you knew about your own craft, but did you see it first and then have memory later? How did that work out exactly?
So as a toddler, I didn't necessarily see the craft. I would just be there with my family.
Okay.
As I was growing up and I was starting to pay attention to things like, the dynamics in the house, that there was a lot of craziness and pandemonium in the house that I grew up in. And I'm the youngest of five and five and a half. And first generation American. So we didn't speak English in the house. We spoke German. And there were times when I knew that there was a certain, like, I would have this experience of when I was in my room that I had, because I started dreaming quite early and I started utilizing my dreams quite early, a lot of information came to me in my dream time.
Okay.
And I had I had multiple experiences of, there was a street light. I lived in a city. There was a street, and we lived on a hill. And there was a street light right outside one of the bedroom windows. The other window was over the driveway. But the window that had the street light in it, I had frequent experiences of feeling like I would get melded through the window,
Okay.
and that light would become the craft, and I would get taken onto the craft through the window. My sister has an experience. My sister described an experience that I will only briefly say involved that street light.
Okay.
More than that, she can tell that story. But it involved that same street light, and that window. I dreamt about that window a lot. Okay. There was a lot of interaction and things that happened with that window, and then things that happened with the other window as well. That I'm not sure if I was privy to early MK Ultra voice of technology testing.
Okay.
But I had experiences in both places, and there was a lot of there were a lot of things happening in the house. There was like poltergeist activity. There was everybody in the house was. We talked a lot about dreams. We talked a lot about ghosts. We would go on family vacations and go UFO hunting. My family told me that I needed to be invisible and that I needed to be really careful of the grays, and that I needed to just really hunker down and be invisible and not be seen, and that we were on quite a journey. We had made this journey. We had tried what we were attempting multiple times before, and we had never been successful. And this was the last time we were going to try.
Okay.
And so it was critical that I did not talk about what I experienced as I was growing up. So the experience that you mentioned that I talked about with the group several years ago is an experience that I had when I was a teenager. I don't know, 13, 14 years old. And a couple of girlfriends came with my family, my one brother and my parents, to the White Mountains. And we were in the back of the station wagon. And my oldest brother was in the service, and he had returned from some traveling. He was in Japan at one point, and he brought back a handheld game before they were popular.
Okay.
Before we had them in the States, so to speak. And so it was, my friends and I were like, insanely into Donkey Kong, and it was a handheld Donkey Kong when nobody else had that. So we were playing in the back of the station wagon, and it was those kind of those seats, the Brady Bunch bucket seats kind of, and they were sitting down below in the seats, and I was sitting on the lip against the back door.
Okay.
And I was sitting with my legs crossed, and I had the game, and I was playing the game. And my father, who was a notorious leadfoot, was speeding, and we were in New Hampshire. We were speeding. We were on the Kangamangas Highway in New Hampshire, and there was a resort that we went to repeatedly, and as I understand it, it's the same resort that Betty and Barney Hill
Yeah, I was
used to
actually I was actually going to say that it was actually around in that same area, and I thought, oh, but you know what? Maybe I'll just let her finish. But it was just sort of like, wait a minute, that
Yeah,
sounds
no,
vaguely
no,
familiar.
no. And when I was 18, on my 18th birthday, I moved out. I moved away from my parents, and
Okay.
I moved to that resort
Oh,
to work there. And I lived in one of the cabins on the grounds,
there you go.
and I worked there for like a year, and had really trippy experiences while I was there. But getting back to this experience when I was a
Yeah.
teenager. So my dad's speeding, and we're in the back, and the three of us are competing, and I'm playing this game, and all of a sudden, the back door flies open, and I fly out backwards. And this is the piece that was in slow motion. So I flew out backwards, and my experience of the event happened in slow motion. And I basically, remember seeing the sky, blue sky and white clouds, and then the yellow lines in the road, and then the blue sky, and then the yellow lines, and then the blue sky. And then I sort of, my body came to I rocked, and then I stopped, and then like the sound went away, and all of a sudden I was like hearing like kind of highway sounds, birds and crickets, and I was sitting in the middle of the road on the yellow line, but I was still in the same position I had been in when I was in the vehicle, when I was in the station wagon. So my legs were still crossed. I was still holding the game. There was not a hair out of place. Had not a scratch on me. The game went like, and I was like, oh, I screwed up my high score. And then this sort of shock sort of hit me, and I was like, oh, oh. And I looked up, and my dad was driving along the side of the road. The door was wide open, and he was backing up, and my friends were like screaming, and he was backing up for quite some time. And I was like, oh, I should get up. I should probably get up. I'm in the middle of the road. I hope there's nobody behind me. And I turned around real quick, and there were no cars. And I stood up, and when I stood up, my knees buckled because the shock hit me. And by that point, my dad was relatively close to me. Nobody got out of the car. Nobody got out of the car.
Okay.
I just sort of looked at it and kind of awkwardly walked slowly to it, just in a bit of a shock, and trying to figure out what had just happened and how it had just happened. And when I got to the car, I got to the back of the car, and I looked at my dad, and nobody, like, my parents didn't turn around. My brother was in the back seat. He was like asleep. My friends were like freaking out, and I was just like, shh, shh, shh. Like, remember all the stories that I tell you about how weird my family is? Like, this is one of those instances. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Okay.
And they were like, what? Are you okay? Oh my God. And I was like, stop talking. Just shh. And my father looked at me in the rearview mirror, and he looked at me, and he said, in German, he said, well, get in the car, dummy. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got in the car, and I shut the door behind me. I shut the back door, and was whispering to my friends, and I was like, this is one of those things. And then The way that I remember it is kind of trippy because I remember us starting to take off, and I remember like looking over the seat like, where's my brother? Why aren't you paying attention? Why is nobody like, I mean, my friends are kind of making a fuss and I'm trying to tell them to calm down, but my parents are like totally nonplussed, like. And then my mom turned around, and when my mom turned around, her eyes were all black.
Oh,
And I thought, oh shit, they're mind wiping her.
wow. Oh, okay.
And I immediately turned to my friends and I said, no matter what, I need you to remember that this happened. They're going to wipe your mind. Oh my God, I need you to remember that this happened. And they were like, what are you talking about? You're nuts. And I said, I'm not kidding. I'm going to keep repeating that this happened. I fell out of the car. Do you remember that I fell out of the car? And they were like, yeah, you weren't hurt. And I said, good. I'm going to keep. And then for the rest of the day and into the next day, because we didn't get home until the next day, I just kept saying, do you remember? And towards the end of like, we dropped them off and they were like, yeah, but it was like by the time the trip was done,
Okay.
everybody was like, something happened. I don't quite remember what happened. And I was like, no, you're going to remember that this happened. And there was another thing that happened when we got home. Another weird thing that happened when we got home, but I don't have to get into that one. I don't have to get into that. But I called my sister and I told her what happened because I was like, they're not going to know to mind wipe her because she wasn't with us. Okay. So I called her and I told her what happened. And I remembered she came to the house and she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, they tried to get rid of me. They tried to get rid of me. And she was like, who did? What are you talking about? And I was like, the bad ETs tried to get rid of me and my family saved me. And then it just sort of like for years, every once in a while I would ask my friends or I would ask my parents, I would ask my brother, like, do you remember what happened? And they would always just say, I know something happened, but I don't remember what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, well, wow, that is a lot to unpack. There's a lot going on over there. Where do I begin? Well, the one thing that strikes me in all of this is that you said your father told you that not to make a big fuss out of this because, or something to that effect that your father spoke to you about dreams and about how to use dreams, but at the same time,
when I was a toddler, yes, he taught me how to dream.
But what I find stands out more is the fact that your parents seemed very kind of, shall I say, nonchalant about the whole thing. And often when you hear about people who are experiencers, you often hear about how it's a family thing. There's things about how you have the grandmother and then the mother, and then you have the daughter, and then that daughter now has her own daughter, and her own little daughter is starting to draw, figures with like black eyes and all that. So it seems to be there's a lot of intergenerational type of experiences that happen. And I get the impression, and maybe I don't understand it, but I get the impression that your parents had been going through this long before you and your brother or your sister came on the scene. It seems to be something that maybe they've experienced and that they were trying to train you how to understand your dreams in order to understand, because what often happens that people will have an experience, they're abducted, and then these kind of experiences they don't remember because they wipe the mind, but then after that they come back and they have dreams, and it's those dreams that lead them to realize that, wait a minute, something did happen. There was a bit of missing time, but okay, who cares? But then after that, you were like, wait a minute, something did happen, and the dreams are kind of scary. It's funny, we're talking about Barney and Betty Hill, and that's like basically what happened is that they didn't feel that yes, the trip took a little bit longer, but at the same time they realized that something had happened because they started to have dreams. So. Would you say that your parents, because you said a lot of strange things happen in your family, so that's clear, but would you say your parents had their own experiences?
They did, and I know that there were certain experiences that my mom had because she shared them with me.
Okay.
my parents, so I'm first generation German American and youngest of five. My parents emigrated to the States in the late 1950s from Germany. And my father was forced into Hitler Youth when he was 14. Um, so there is quite a bit of history that I am not aware of, history that I don't really have access to, that my dad didn't really talk about. We just all kind of witnessed a lot of strange things as we were growing up. I do know, I feel like I can corroborate that the Nazis were in cahoots with the Greys from Zeta Reticuli, and that there somehow, I didn't know a lot of things as when I was a child. When I was a child, what I knew was that the Greys were bad and they were not my family, and that my star family was trying to protect me and keep me invisible from the Zeta Reticuli, that they really were the bad guys, and that they were harming people. I knew that there were children all over the world that were in places nobody knew, that they were being held underground, that they were terrified, that there were thousands of them, and that when I went to sleep, there were times when I saw it was like when I say saw, I mean in my third eye. Like there's a part of seeing them, but mostly hearing them. And my star family would come and get me, and they would try to counsel me and comfort me and tell me that that I wasn't there, that what I needed to do was get a hold of myself, because I was raising an emotion that would make me, that would render me, it would put me on their radar.
Okay.
And that I had to control my emotion a little bit better. And it was really hard for me because I would get really scared and I would get really freaked out by what I was seeing. And I would talk to my mom about it, because my mom would be, why are you crying, right? What do you have to cry about? There's like, there's no reason for you to have to, have this level of panic and emotion. That you're not at risk right now for anything. Why are you crying? And I would say to her, because I can feel the children. I can hear them. I know how scared they are. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody knows they're there. And I would frequently see the hunts. I would see the rituals and the masks and what was being worn, and that they were being chased in the woods. And then I would get I would get sort of rescued by my family, in terms of like, to stop to stop what I was seeing, because I didn't know how to turn it off.
Okay.
And so having that experience as a child, and then also being able to see trajectories, having prophetic dreams, sharing certain things with my family, but not everything, because I wasn't supposed to talk about it. But like doing things like when the phone rang, I would announce who was calling before anybody answered it.
Okay.
And when I was, I don't know, about maybe six or seven, my mom having a conversation with me this one time where she said, I don't know where you come from. I know that you're not like any of my other children. I know that. I feel that. I can see that. You know things. I don't know how you know the things that you do, but I just want you to know that I see you. And I see that there's something different happening here. And I'm not scared, but I don't really know how to help you. Kind of like, I know you're different. And I'm just trying to acknowledge it for you.
Okay.
Um,
But just and that's so it's so incredible. I don't even know what to say at this point because there's a lot going on. But it's interesting because you talk about your star family. Now you're saying that your star family was trying to protect you from the Greys. So I mean, look, I don't know if all the Greys are evil because are some people that have had experiences with the Greys and the Greys have actually tried to help them out and have showed them like, the future. If you don't take care of your planet, this is what's going to happen. So there are a lot of people that have had experiences with Greys, and so some are evil and some are depending on what you want to believe, are under the control of other beings. And then there are those who, yes, there are, the Draco and the Zeta Reticuli, all that, and that they're evil. So when you say your star family, who was your star family? Like, what did they look like? So I assume they weren't gray because they were protecting you from that. So
so
what?
so for let me
Okay.
say so. There within our galaxy, it's been told by people who know much more than I do and have seen much more than I have seen and have access to so much more information than I have, that there are hundreds of thousands of different types of beings in our galaxy alone. And there are lots of beings that would be categorized as grays. And not all of them are nefarious. A lot of them are amazingly good beings. It's the Zeta Reticuli that I was warned about. And I have had my my galactic astrology read by a few different people. And I have been told that I had a lifetime in the Zeta Reticuli because I needed to find out, my soul needed to find out what was going on there and to observe. And I also want to say that we are all we all have such an amalgamation of experiences and histories and lineages that we come from. There are, one of the things I said to my mom when I was a kid is, so please understand that this came out of the mouth of like a 7 or 8 year old to my mom. One time I said to her, um, you know what Jesus did in 33 years? You know how amazing he was and what he was able to accomplish in 33 years? And she said, yeah. I said, that was one being. Imagine if there are thousands of us.
Wow.
So when my mom was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know.
But I mean, that's incredible, though. I mean, coming from a 7-year-old, that's pretty intense. You were clearly. I mean, if I may be so bold, I think yes, it's coming out of your mouth, but at some level, you're channeling that kind of information, and it's coming from a higher source and saying, "Look,
Yes.
this. Imagine there are thousands of us, and
Yeah.
we're going to circle back at some point and talk about what's happening now." But I
Yeah.
just, because that comment I find relates to what's happening on the earth right now. But we'll come back to that a little later. But to just sort of come back to it, so I just want to clarify: would you say your star family were what? Palladians? Were Andromedans? What did they?
So I don't have a name. I
Okay,
know that at one point during my childhood, I was fascinated by the Pleiades.
okay,
I was fascinated by ancient Egypt. I was fascinated as a young kid. It was like everything I could possibly get my hands on to read about Egypt. I was like, I'm
okay,
supposed to go to Egypt. I don't know why I'm supposed to go to Egypt. And then as I got older, it faded.
okay,
I did at one point tell my mom that I was from the Pleiades.
okay,
But I can't say that the family, my light family, didn't. I mean, they were humanoid shaped,
okay. So
right?
that's
They
the
had
thing. So they're
a head
humanoid
and
then.
arms and legs, but
Okay,
but I couldn't see features because there was so much light coming out of them.
okay,
And over the course of my life, I have seen myself in other dimensional realities
Okay.
as other beings. Like this one time I saw myself as this ethereal, like, I don't know what, 10th, 11th dimensional being. I was the size of, I mean, a star system, and I could easily densify my body, and then become. I was an ethereal being, and and I had access to certain experiences over the course of a few hours. It was like I was living for days. And there were times when I would come back and I would frequently journey and travel as a child. I would be out of my body overnight and then struggling to get back in my body in the morning before my mom came in to wake me up. I was scared that she would think that I was dead because I wasn't in my body and I couldn't make it move. And I would be focusing all of my energy on getting back into my body. So I journeyed a lot, and I saw a lot of things in the solar system, as well as had varied experiences, some positive, some negative. I had a lot of I experienced a lot of terror having to do with demonics.
Oh.
And as a child, I was subject to abuse. My parents had big parties, and there were lots of people in the house, and some inappropriate things happened, and I got into the habit of trying to hide, and I would hide in closets.
Okay.
But there would be times when I was so terrified, because when I was hiding, I would see with my third eye. I didn't need to see with my human eyes because I could see with my third eye. And I would see fourth dimensional beings. And there would be lots of drunken people in the 1970s in the house. And I could see beings. And so I got poked, I got prodded, I got scratched. I know that happened to my siblings as well. And so it was just there was most of the experience was just sort of like, as a kid, you're having this experience and it's just your experience, right? It's almost like, yeah, some kids get up and they go to school and they have dogs and they have cats and they learn how to take care of their animals. And I didn't have that. What I had was lots of fourth dimensional beings in the house moving shit, and that being a reality. And a lot of it had to do with being afraid. And I didn't overcome my fear of demonics until I was in my 40s.
Okay.
It was just like I was a freaking loosh factory for a long time. It took a long time to find and step into sovereignty and my power and take my power back.
Yeah. For those of, just to sort of like a side note here, for those of people who are not familiar with the term loosh, so I just want to sort of take a sidebar here. Loosh is described as what is released from humans when we're very afraid, when we're scared, people that are in a war zone, fear,
anger,
all the negative emotions come out, and there are certain dimensions.
It's an energetic food.
Yeah.
For lower fourth dimensional beings. Yes.
Exactly. So, and that's another reason, just sort of take like a sidetrack here, but that's another reason why, this planet is controlled, and a lot of the archons that control this planet specifically want to incite a lot of fear and wars and all this craziness, and
right now,
children,
especially because they're losing control.
They're losing control, exactly. So they've been on this thing where they push these types of agendas, and they control the governments, and they control all of that negativity, and they push it, especially in the media. They push it because it gives them the food that they need to in order to feed off of that. And so it's just so that people understand what the word loosh is. And also, when you're saying that people were at the party and unfortunately you had to go through that experience, with inappropriate behavior. But when you have people that are drunk, and I mean, let's the face of the 70s were quite wild, but when you have people that are drunk, or people that are intoxicated or whatever, and any kind of inappropriate behavior, that releases that loosh as well. And so they're feeding off of that. And so that doesn't surprise me that you had these fourth dimensional beings, because they're able to come. You know, if you were able to sort of go to a bar and really see what's happening, you would see all these beings really feeding and sucking off the drunk in the corner or the drug addict in the corner, that sort of thing. So it's unfortunate, but and also I see that you're very much, I mean, you're beyond being an empath. You are really, like you said, a multidimensional being, and so you feel all that. So you have all the Clair sentience, the Clair audience, and all Clair feeling, and so you're feeling all of that. And it's something that I think really a lot of people, especially people from Gen X, that sort of generation, we have a lot of that. We came, as that group of people to really help us along, because a lot of us have had those types of
Came from all over,
all over,
all over here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're all feeling that.
We flooded in to try to help.
Exactly. I actually just want to sort of just, I know we're going to take questions later on, but I have an interesting question here from Claudia Bosick. She says, what does a fourth dimensional being look like? Would you be able to describe that?
What does a human look like?
Yeah.
I mean, they can look like anything, right? It's an energetic projection. And so there are times, I know that there are, depending on the seer's skill level, right? I would say, that I'm not the best seer. I know there are people that I'm related to that see much more clearly and see detail much more clearly than I do. I see shadow, and I may get a quick image in my mind, in my third eye, in my mind's eye, but I mostly see shadow.
Okay.
Except when in my waking self. When I'm sleeping, there is much more clarity about what I'm seeing and what's actually happening. But there's also, there's I really appreciate dream time, because I just feel like my higher self is freaking badass. My higher self knows and remembers and has access to all of the lifetimes and the abilities and all of the star systems that I've lived in, and all of those experiences, those lived experiences, has immediate access to those gifts and those abilities in a way that I can't even, I'm humbled. I am absolutely humbled. And I know it's a future me. And so in a way that I feel like what's important for people to realize is that many, many, many hundreds of thousands of people have these same abilities. We are amazingly divine, multidimensional beings. We exist multidimensionally. Our brain has the capacity to comprehend multiple dimensions. That's not by accident. We are so gifted, and so many of us have chosen specific paths for specific reasons. Some of us have chosen a path of waking up later in life and just participating in the third dimension and surviving and having crazy experiences and then going into the workforce and working and living, and then waking up at a later point in life. And then others of us who have these experiences for most of our lives. I don't know very many people who saw the things that I saw and had the experiences that I did that navigated the third dimension very well.
Yeah. I think there are some people, obviously your experiences were above and beyond. I've heard some stuff, but wow, that really took it to the next level. I think for people that have experienced similar types of, have similar experiences, a lot of people, I think, especially way back, 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a lot of the woo factor, and people were like, didn't talk about it, and it didn't happen, and a lot of people just sort of put it aside and put it just, basically brushed it under the carpet and left it alone. And what's happening now, and you were talking about people, being these, we all have these experiences. I think what's happening right now is that we're all coming to terms with the fact that, yes, we do have the abilities. And you're right, there's some people that are still going to be kind of not really interested and just want to sort of, continue in the third dimension. And that's fine, because you have to let people do their thing. But I think a lot of people's abilities are starting to come online now. And I think a lot of people are starting to say, oh, okay, wait, I didn't have this before. And a lot of people's abilities are starting to come online, and they sort of said, well, I kind of knew I had this, but I never sort of really paid attention to it. And so now it's all sort of starting to come to crystallize, and people are saying, wait a minute, this is it. And I feel it's sort of like people feel more able to talk about it and to be more open. And when we have these platforms, for example, like YouTube and all that, we have now a community. We are all coming together, we're all coming together and saying, I'm not the weirdo. This is actually what happened to me, and this is what I've been experiencing since I've been a child, and so forth, and my parents experienced it as well. Now, I do have another question here, which is kind of weird, but Trav asks, how do we meet fourth dimensional beings, please? I don't know if I want to meet fourth dimensional beings, but anyways.
Okay. One of the things that I think is really important that I tried really hard to remember to say this evening is that our abilities are heightened and turned on as we go within. You have to be a meditator. You have to be a meditator. The wanting to experience, you got to be careful with what you want, because you're a creator being, and what you focus on, you draw to you. And if you are not prepared for what you are drawing to you, you can be taken advantage of. And which is why it is so critical for us in this time period now to develop discernment, to go within, to develop a spiritual understanding and energetic understanding of the universe that we exist in. How can you commune with trees? Are you somebody who hugs trees? Right? Mm-hmm. If I hug a tree, generally speaking, I'm also going to see the tree being. Mm-hmm. And they're not all nice. Most of them are wonderful, but they're not all nice.
Are they kind of like Ents from the Lord of the Rings? I mean, I'm kind of geeking out here, but is there a Lord of the Rings kind of Ent thing where they can talk and they talk really slow and Entish? I don't know.
So I feel like, if you go through the woods, that there are certain people, you got to be careful, mm-hmm. right? There's a reason that Native people, mm-hmm. indigenous people all over the world are respectful to nature. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Exactly.
It's like the worst thing that you can do, the worst offense, I think, tragedy of any people on the planet mm-hmm. is a belief that you are disconnected from spirit, from God, mm-hmm. from the universe, mm-hmm. from all of creation. We are all connected and related and one family. Mm-hmm. Those of us who chose to come into a body that mm-hmm. was born on this planet, who are what I call Terrans, Terrans, mm-hmm. Terrans, we are one people. The rest of the galaxy sees us as Terrans, mm-hmm. right? They don't see us as North Americans, South Americans, Canadians, mm-hmm. Guatemalans. They see us as Terrans. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the biggest thing that we have in our lifetimes right now to overcome is the separation that we have internalized, mm-hmm. that was programmed into us.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. That's where the archons come in. They do that. in order to separate us and to sort of be able to divide and conquer. So,
So the
you know,
reason that they do that though is because we are more powerful than they
exactly.
are.
Exactly.
And what makes us so powerful is because we are an amalgamation of multiple types, like the best of kind of the best of the best. And so they've had to keep us down and to do resets every so often.
Exactly.
Over, humans, there have been beings coming here for as long as this planet has been in existence
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
We're talking like does your memory go back 450,000 years? Because I feel like mine does.
Okay.
And the experiences that I've had are not necessarily like I've had lots of seeing things, experiencing the information that's come to me in ayahuasca journeys, mind blowing. I don't necessarily know whether that information is mine per se, or if I'm tapping into information in the Akash.
Okay.
So it feels like it's my experience. Like there might be times where I'm having a dream and it feels like my experience and I'm a little confused as to why I'm seeing what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing, and I don't quite get it until I the next day have a client on the table, and what's happened is that I'm having information come to me about that client, and it actually wasn't me. It was their experience.
There you go.
Coming to me precognitively so that I could be more present for them and help them with the thing that they were struggling with.
Exactly.
That happens to me all the time. So being able to tap into the Akashic information in our collective memory, it doesn't matter if it's my experience or your experience. What matters is that most of us comprehend that what we do to ourselves, we do to each other, and what we do to each other, we do to ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and for sure. Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. And, just to sort of, touch upon the Akashic records, it makes sense to me what you're saying, because the Akashic records, especially if you're on an ayahuasca, like plant medicine type of journey, is that you're outside of your actual physical mind, And I mean, memory, a lot of people are saying, is not in the physical mind, but it's something that we're connected to. So we could get onto a whole other different tangent on that one. But so the point is that if you're saying, as you're saying, we are one, and one is all of us, then, I mean, it makes sense that when you are out and you have the memory, you're going to have the memory of everything, and you're going to be able to see all those different types of things. So that's really kind of interesting. I just have
to answer that specific question,
Yeah.
in order to develop the ability to see that, you have to develop a spiritual connection to yourself and to God and to the universe. You can there are different roads to get there, right? Some people go the route of science and quantum and plasma physics. That eventually is going to bring us right back around to what indigenous peoples have been saying
Exactly.
for eons.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So to comprehend that you are spirit, you are eternal, you are made of energy, you're wearing a human bag, you're wearing a human body. You are not the human body. You are the consciousness that the body exists within. You can tap into your past experiences and your future experiences. But what's most important right now is here and now. And how do we relate, and how do we learn to not be so judgmental? How do we learn to open our hearts?
Yeah.
How do we learn to be with people who we disagree with without vilifying them?
Exactly.
We have a lot to fix right now if we're going to enter an intergalactic society, an interdimensional society. There are beings that are living in, on, and around this planet that won't interact with us because we are so violent.
Exactly.
We are so immature. We are so unconscious. So if anything, I think the thing that's most important for us is to figure out and find ways to develop consciousness, to become aware of how we're interacting, what people mean, how to communicate better, how to resolve our own issues, how to heal from our past traumas.
Exactly.
So that when we're interacting with people, we're not seeing them from those traumas, because we're not truly seeing who they are and what they're trying to say if we have all of these
Filters. Yeah.
ideas and wounds. We're seeing everything through those wounds. We are deeply wounded.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I think that, yes, I mean, in our defense, I feel that, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. But in our defense, we have been so played and tinkered. Thank you. We've been so tinkered with on this planet. And I mean, they're still tinkering, because I mean, a lot of people who are still having experiences talk about how they can see that they're tinkering with the DNA, and that they're trying to like do some sort of breeding program. If people are aware of, David M. Jacobs, he talks about how they're trying to do a breeding program, and all that kind of stuff. So we've been tinkered with since the beginning of time. And, there are different agendas that are competing on this planet. So in our defense, we're trying. But like you said, as human beings, we are very, very powerful, and they've had to keep that down to sort of damp down that power. But it's only so much you can it's sort of like the wall, and you have a dam, and after a while, you have one hole, and you try to plug your finger in like the hole, and then try to stop the water, and after a while the dam just sort of breaks down. So I feel that that's sort of where we are right now, is that there's a lot of cracks in this dam, and they cannot be held back any further. And even though the powers that be are trying to keep us divided and all that, I still feel that a lot of people who are, especially people that are coming online and realizing it, and don't forget, they're not going to talk about this in the media. They're not going to talk about it. They're going to give you the impression that it's all about the left and the right and the Dems and the Republicans and up and the down, and that's not it. If you really look at what's going on around you,
those wings are attached to the same bird.
That's kind of thing. So I have another comment here from Autumn. And Autumn says, in my experience, the fourth dimensional beings can shift and change form. Not like an entirely different form, but as they move in and out of 3D. Did you want to comment on that?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Great observation, Autumn. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I have another one here from Karen Wallow. She says, I'm a Venusian starseed. And I was wondering if anyone else is getting attacked currently via bad things like sickness, etc., happening, many of their close loved ones. And I mean, it's funny because she mentioned sickness, and I mean, I'm not going to interpret what she's trying to say, but I know that recently a lot of people have been getting sick and all that, and coming down with the flu. And I feel that that's sort of a part of our clearing. We're clearing our bodies for this new dimension. If you wanted to sort of,
Yes. Yes. So, one of the things I do is volunteer for the Lightfield Foundation. And I had the opportunity to get to know a little bit. Really amazing engineer by the name of Mark Newkirk. And he transitioned out of his body in 2019. But in the couple years before he did that, I was able to have a few conversations with him, go to a few of his lectures, talk with him about the tech that he had created, like the light field, and got to know a community of people, and have finally a scientist be able to explain to me with science the experiences that I had had my whole life. And so I really tried to learn everything I could about this idea of consciousness development, even though as a kid, right, I intrinsically knew this. I went for my first past life reading when I was like 14. I started looking for people who did past life regressions because I needed to learn what I had to learn so that I never had to be with these people again, so that I could get off this planet and not have to be with humans who were so unconscious I couldn't tolerate it anymore. So I am on this trajectory where I am still learning a whole bunch about who I am, what I can do, what's happening in the world, how I can do a better job at what I'm doing, how I can do things differently and learn more. But this idea that there are lots of people who are talking about this in the world, that you can access for free on YouTube, who talk about being able to get into the 0 point, who talk about utilizing your emotion, your intent, and your desire to create the world that you want. We're all pretty amazing. We are creators. We are creator beings, and we create with intent. We create the science, like if there's anything I learned from Mark, it's that there's like 110, 120 years of quantum and plasma physics experiments in the world, verifying the extent to which we are creator beings.
Absolutely.
We create with our thoughts. So what you focus on, you help to create. For a long time, there was this concept that was floating out there about the great bifurcation, how there was going to be two earths and they were going to separate, and one was going to be good and the other was going to be bad, and then you would kind of cease to exist. And what I feel like that experience and that concept was talking about was the time period that we are in right now. That we can be among people we have grown up with and be in a completely different reality than the reality that they are in.
Exactly.
And what I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt is that you can be with the same people in the same room and have an entirely different experience of any event. And the experience that you have has a lot to do with what you believe and what you've been taught and how you've been programmed. So if you are having experiences, if you are living in a state of fear, if you're living in a state of confusion, if you're living in a state of reactiveness, you actually have the ability to slow time down and realize every single thought that you have is a choice point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can become more empowered to create more positive experiences, but you have to get a hold of your own thought process, your own thought processes to be able to do that. You can learn how to do it. There's a lot of people teaching it, you know, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, like there's a lot of people talking about this kind of stuff. There are lots of coaches out there, but I think that what is most important is that people begin, as they're drifting off to sleep, what kind of solutions do you want? What are you looking for? What can you ask yourself? Get quiet. Open your heart. Start sending yourself some love. You know, if you get up in the middle of the night because you can't sleep, go to the bathroom, turn the light on, look yourself in the eye and say, I love you. You're awesome.
Exactly.
We can do this.
Yeah.
You can do this. You've got this.
Yeah.
Universe is conspiring for you. Things are getting better and better to reprogram, because we have been so programmed. It's why they call it a tell-a-vision. They've been telling us the vision they want us to have.
Wow, I like that.
Tell-a-vision programming. We have been programmed. The frequencies that we are being bombarded with are being it's almost like, you know, I'm sure people have heard this idea of that, you know, there's a war between good and evil going on right now. There's a frequency war happening right now. As much as the Kali Yuga is ending and power over is going by the wayside, that is ending. So what we could focus on right now is the world that's falling apart and what isn't working, or we could choose to focus on what does work and what the solutions are.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know, for sure, I think that people are definitely at that level where because a lot of people are saying, oh my God, what's going on? I thought it's supposed to be the age of Aquarius, and we were sold a sort of, I think, a bit of a pipe dream about what the age of Aquarius is. But if you understand astrology, you'll understand that, especially when you have I think, you know, right now we have Pluto and Aquarius. All of that is about tearing down a lot of the structures that we have now and rebuilding. And so you have to tear that down. And it's the tearing down that people are like, what's happening? But, you know, if you...
Diva, right? In order to have new, you have to have the
bring it
destruction.
down. Absolutely.
Right? It's the phoenix from the flame.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
destruction has to happen in order for the new to come along.
Exactly, but that phoenix has to burn, full and clear, and I think that's the sort of thing that people are a bit like kind of freaked out about. But you know what though, astrology, and I know I've mentioned it many times on this channel, is that astrologically this year, especially 2025, is going to be rock and roll, and we're going to see a lot of stuff happening. We're going to see a lot of stuff, and we're going to sort of question and say, but wait a minute, I thought I came here to have like this age of Aquarius and all that, and what's
It
happening?
starts here.
It
It
starts
starts
here, but as what you're saying,
having the age of Aquarius experience
exactly.
has to start within.
But we have to sort of, and at least right now on YouTube, every second video is about how to manifest your reality and all that. So at least people are starting to get on top of that. People are starting to get an awareness and say, okay. And you see a lot of young people saying, well, you can do this and all that kind of stuff. So at least people are aware. But we have some work to do. But I think starting next year, I think astrologically next year, things are going to be quite interesting. So we're going to have to come back and look at that again. But I wanted to sort of get actually to a comment that Autumn made, which I think is very interesting. She says here, right now the Schumann resonance is going crazy, which may feel like a spiritual attacks, maybe. I think, you want to respond to that? Because I think that's right on the money, Autumn. Thanks.
Yes. So we are being bombarded with photons of light. I'm going to turn off my camera for 1 second because my kitty is begging to come in. Hang on 1 second.
All right, no problem.
Let her in.
Okay.
So, come on in, you. So with the spikes that are happening in the Schumann resonance, and the photons that we are being bombarded with coming out of the grand central sun, right? Where are you? Grand central sun, there you are.
There you go. There you go.
That are coming out of the center of the grand central sun, so the center of the Milky Way galaxy. The photons of light that we are being bombarded with so lots of people, including myself, going through periods of time, are having heightened anxiety. Now, you can if you're fatalistic and you're more negatively oriented, that anxiety can drive you crazy. It can make you feel crazy. It can make you feel insane. It can make you buggy. But if there's a way for you to just pause it for a moment and try to think of the energies that are coming through are just frequencies. They're actually not bad. It's just a frequency. And so I can choose to see it as energy. I can sort of flip the script around it and do what I like to refer to this with the folks that I work with through the light field and with clients that I work with as keeping my God goggles firmly planted on my face. So if I've got my God goggles on, that same high frequency that's coming through can be energy for creation rather than energy that makes me anxious. It could be helping me get something done that I haven't been able to get done. It could be just and a reminder that I need to ground and breathe, that I need to take my shoes off and go outside and put my feet on the ground, or, utilize a meditation blanket or get some grounding sheets, or, somebody recently said, rub the bottoms of your feet with silver spoons, that will help a grounding. There's a lot of different ways that you can ground. But it has to do with perspective and how you are able to lean in. So as the frequencies come up through us or come through us, however you want to envision those coming through us, what's brought up is the density. What's brought up is the trauma. What's brought up is the parts of us that are really incoherent. If there's a lot of coherence, if there's been a lot of healing done and a lot of conscious intention knowing that you are here on purpose, that it's not a mistake that you are here. There are a lot of people that are super excited about this time period, and they're utilizing this time to connect with others, join meditation groups, join consciousness raising groups, get involved, do projects, connect with like-minded people, utilize your energy to create more good in the world. Then as the frequencies come through, they're experiencing them as bliss states. Like, it's a positive thing. It's more energy to get stuff done. But if there's a lot of density or a lot of trauma or a lot of programming that is held within the body, that's going to come to the surface. During the spikes, during those high times.
Absolutely.
And for those of us who are precognitive, we get it before the spike.
Exactly.
We get up to 2 days to a week before the spike, and by the level of anxiety that I have, I can tell how big it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
77 yesterday. It was at a 77 yesterday. I was just like, oh, it's big.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It's interesting because I think that I remember talking with the group before and saying how, all of a sudden I'm having these like joint pains and ankle pains and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, what's going on? I said, look, okay, I'm not 20, but still. And I think that sort of, touches upon what you're saying. And even I have a little comment here from Karen Wallow. Karen says, appreciate addressing my question. I'm dealing with a stubborn ankle and knee injury myself. In addition on what my friends are going through, none of it makes sense. But it does make sense because it means that, like you're saying, whatever you haven't worked out and whatever is stuck in the body, because one thing a lot of people have to understand is that a lot of the trauma and a lot of things that we go through, the body remembers. It's not just up here.
Oh, yeah.
Our whole body, our whole cellular makeup remembers. Yes. There's memory throughout the whole body. So
our DNA remembers.
Our DNA remembers. And that's why you can sort of pass on certain traits. And so the thing is that if you haven't worked through your stuff and you haven't done your shadow work, you are going to get the knee pain and the this and that. But all of that is also about bringing it to the surface, working through it, and then finally getting out of it. Because I had that for a while there, especially last year. I was like, oh my God, I have all this ankle pain. I'm in so much pain. What's happening? And I don't wear high heels. And I said, well, what is going on? And it's only now that it's really starting to clear.
In many ways.
Came and went.
We are releasing the shackles that have been on our ankles and holding us back, literally and figuratively, not just our own genetic experience, our own consciousness experience, genetically, right? The way that not just the biological DNA carries memory, but the way our consciousness carries memory from where we have been and what we have lived through. We are doing so much right now, and we are overcoming so many hundreds of thousands of lifetimes being enslaved. We're releasing that. So the thing that I think is helpful is in those moments, just send your ankles some love. Go easy. You can do intention work. My sister has this amazing, she does this meditation with light that she learned from, it's a compilation of people that she learned it from, mostly Elena Danaan, but that where she, and I'm pretty sure Elena's has been removed from, it's no longer in her channel's history, but it's utilizing a healing light that moves through your body, focusing on all of your body parts and sending your body love and light, and allowing and literally seeing and visualizing the healing and the mending take place. That kind of creative visualization, if you've ever heard of like Olympic athletes when they train, a lot of the training that they go through is visualization training, because time space is an illusion. The physical world is a bit of an illusion. It is malleable in a way that we have not been taught it's malleable, but it absolutely is malleable. And the more you envision what it is that you desire, the easier it is. And the more of us that are holding that same vision of being free, of being sovereign, of living in unity and living in compassion and with joy, where we're getting along, where we're living intergalactically, where we're supporting one another, and have the ability to be autonomous in a way that we have not been allowed to experience up to this point,
Yeah.
right? Many of us are breaking through those shackles, and so our bodies are calling our attention to certain areas that need a little bit more TLC.
Absolutely.
So give your body that TLC,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because people who know me have heard me say that one of the healing modalities that I follow is the emotion code body code. And the emotion code body code specifically, way it focuses is it asks your body, what do you need? What is it that you need to work on? And the body will actually respond and say, well, I need help with this, or I had this experience as a child, or I had this happen. And I can tell you, up front, that when I've done that kind of healing, it's really changed my body completely. And it's really, so, if anybody wants to check that out, it's Emotion Code Body Code. And there's a lot of information in it on YouTube, but that is specifically asks your body, your body can heal itself, literally, but
Brings me to a point,
sure,
which I think is really important. You can do muscle testing is wonderful, right? You're falling forward or you're falling backward. Are you able to, there's also a lot of different approaches. But if you are going to any kind of healer worth
their salt,
the most important thing that a healer should do is to affirm your intuition about what you know, because they don't know you as well as you know you. So if you are honest and you are open and you are truly feeling in, if a healer or anybody that you're going to for assistance in any way, shape, or form says stuff that it doesn't quite sit right, please pay attention to your intuition.
Yeah. That's the compass.
Always follow your intuition.
Yeah, it's your compass, no?
Yeah, it is your compass, and this is the discernment piece that's so important. It is so important to develop your discernment and to feel into what feels right for you, because what might be right for you might not be right for your best friend or your group of friends. You may need to go into different directions because that's your soul contract. Pay attention to what you believe, and that's not to discard what psychics are telling you or what healers are telling you. I'm not saying just everything they're saying.
No, but it has to resonate. It has to resonate with what you're feeling,
But feel into it and trust yourself.
Yeah. But that's the big problem, eh? We don't trust ourselves because a lot of times people say, you know what? I had a feeling I should not do this, or I had a feeling I should not be with this guy, or I had a feeling this, I had a feeling that. And it turns out later on that, you know what? If I just listened to myself, if I just trusted myself, I would not have gone down that dark alley and had, ABC experience. So by trusting yourself, you actually work on your own intuition and you strengthen it because you're actually listening to it with it's very, very subtle.
Yeah. Yes. So it's those subtle things, if you're paying attention, it's those subtle things that allow you to learn how to communicate with the universe. The universe is always communicating with you. So the fourth dimension is there. It's always there, but are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Are you aware of how the universe speaks? Are you aware? Can you begin to get out of your head, get off your tech?
Which sucks your energy. Which sucks your energy, guys. That takes a lot out of your own personal energy.
Yeah, go into the woods, put your feet on the ground, look at people,
in the eye.
At the animals, pay attention to, what birds are showing up for you, what bugs are coming up, what kind of animals are in your environment around you, what are the signs around you. The universe is always communicating with you.
Yeah,
always.
Exactly.
You're always trying to assist.
Yeah.
always.
That's great. So I have another comment here from Mary Grace. And
Okay.
Mary Grace asks a question. She says here, aren't many humans considered fourth dimensional as we shift from 3D to 5D, especially those who have had awakenings? Did you want to answer Mary Grace's question on that one?
Yeah, there are lots of different opinions about where we're at. I would say that there are many, many of us, especially folks that are tuned in this evening and that are going to be watching this later, that are in the, I would say, higher third into lower fourth, going into the fifth, right? This is the transition period, moving from third through fifth. For most of my life, I've been really excited about the earth returning to the fifth through seventh and 12th dimension, to where she originally was before the fall, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we're all in this trajectory. We're all moving back and forth, spending a little bit more time here and there as we're transitioning, as we're transmuting in many ways the third dimension, which is why we know about quantum and plasma physics, why we are able to utilize our dreams, why we're able to remote view, why we're able to access and get a hit on somebody, feeling into, not crazy about these vibes. These vibes feel really good. Learn how to trust your own intuition more. And yes, absolutely, we're in that shift.
Absolutely. And interesting here, I have Brooke Brando. She says, "Hi Ingrid, thank you for sharing your story." And definitely, I think that it's an incredible story. And I when you said that thing about television, I thought, my God, you should put that on a T-shirt and sell
That's
it.
not mine. I heard it somewhere.
Okay,
I
but it's
could make it
cool.
up.
It's cool. That's great. And another comment here from Autumn. She said, it's hard trusting ourselves when our higher selves is trying to keep us safe. But I mean, I get that, Autumn. It is kind of hard. But you know what, though? I think at the same time, we've also been taught not to trust ourselves. Because if we trust ourselves, we remove ourselves from the matrix. We remove ourselves from the controlling bodies, the governments, the church, and all that sort of patriarchal society. And I'm not trying to say the patriarchal as in against men, not that, no. But what I'm trying to say is that,
Yeah.
well, you know what I mean. But it's just that we've been taught not to trust ourselves, and so we give our power away. You see, they want to take our power. No?
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Baby steps. But learn to trust yourself because you're much more powerful. Now, look, sometimes it's sort of like a baby. The baby gets up, tries to take a couple of steps and then falls and gets up again. But sooner or later, the baby's walking and then the baby's running. So, you can't just, hit the ground running and be a baby and then start running. No way. You have to work your way through it.
Notice? What do you notice? What do you notice in, try little experiments. Do little experiments with yourself. When you tune into your body right before you go to sleep and you surround yourself with love, right? This, I learned from Elena Denon, which I love. When she calls in love light, she calls in love above her, beneath her, at her back, to her front, to the left, and to the right. I like to add to the angles, flowing to me, flowing through me, and emanating out of me, guiding my thoughts, guiding my words, guiding my deeds. That's love and light, and that's source. It's life force energy. Your words have power. You can tune in right before as you're drifting off to sleep. You can tune in, ask your higher self some questions. As time goes on, you'll get better and better about retrieving your memories about the information that was shared with you in your dream time. That will come easier and easier if you're dreaming in color, right? Noticing, are you dreaming in color or black and white? If you're dreaming in color, chances are you're lucid dreaming, or you're much closer to lucid dreaming, right? Where you're able to have a little bit more agency. Your dream isn't happening to you. You're not just watching it, you're actually interacting, and you have the ability to manipulate and change things. It's quite a powerful experience. Just start doing little experiments where you're being your own cheerleader.
Now I have... Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, and just surrounding yourself with love and appreciation for everything that we have survived and gone through and still have yet to go through.
Yeah.
There's still some crumbling that needs to happen. And so developing that discernment right now and showering yourself with love and self-care is not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And I think especially where women are concerned, we've been really given a real beatdown about body positivity, about our bodies, about what it means to be, desirable, loved, all that kind of stuff. I think as women, we've really been having a bum rap. And it's only now, as that we're having to learn that it's not just about my physical appearance; it's about who I am, and learning to let go of that. And so I think that's a really big thing that
Program.
people, but that's the
We've all
programming.
been programmed.
We've all
We've
been
all been
programmed,
programmed. Men have been programmed.
Yeah,
Women
for
have
sure.
been programmed.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I have another interesting comment here from Autumn. She says here, what is your recommended method for tapping into the Akashic records? And so I sort of maybe ties the dovetails into what you're saying about, dreaming, or did you want to sort of expand on that?
Yeah, you can, I can share with you how I taught myself to do it when I was a kid. Okay. What I would do is, now when I was a kid, I did this to escape what was going on around me. I no longer do it to escape. But, what I know now as an adult is that an unstressed body can heal itself of anything. So the optimal state to be able to be a stronger, more powerful co-creator, a creator, is when you're not stressed and when you're feeling love. So if you can enter a state, like, for example, sitting right where you're sitting, if you can close your eyes and put your hands in your lap and just start paying attention to your breath. Start leaning in. When I was a kid, what I would do is I would enter that space, and then I would actually take my hands and my fingers and I would lightly rest them on my eyes. And when I did that, when I close my eyes and I look at the inside of my eyelids, I actually see an iris. I see an eye. And that iris that I see is great big. And what I would just do is I would start moving through, and it would become like a tunnel. And as it would move and get bigger and I'd move into it, I would begin moving through it. Like I was moving through it, sort of like that.
Okay.
And I could travel faster and faster. And then the longer I would do it, I would begin to see stars. And sometimes I could focus on the stars and the stars would combine and then begin to form into larger pieces of light, and those pieces would form into things, and I would be looking at things, and then those things that I would be looking at generally would show up in my life within a few days. So I would begin to see scenes. And the very first time it ever happened, I was sitting at the kitchen table and I was looking at there was a Life magazine on the table in front of me. And I just, put my hands in my eyes and I decided to see, what can I see? What can I see? What can I see? And I wasn't specifically thinking, what can I see in the magazine? It was just like, what can I see if I go in? I love the shapes. I love the colors. I love what I'm seeing and how it moves and how I can see it and the places I can go. And I just started seeing this formation, and all of a sudden it turned into these bubbles. And the bubbles got bigger, and then I saw some movement off in the distance behind the bubbles, and that movement came closer and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden it was a young girl, and she turned her face and she looked at me. And when she looked at me, she was so close to me. And I got so startled as the bubbles came up and her face was right in front of me, looking me in the eye with bubbles coming out of her mouth. And it shocked me out of what I was doing. And then I was like, oh, I don't know how long I was doing that for. Okay. So, and then I flipped the page in the Life magazine, and when I flipped the page, it was the spread on the 2 pages of the Life magazine. It was underwater photography of a young girl underwater, and
Oh,
it was her looking at the lens, the camera, looking the camera
wow.
at the camera lens with bubbles coming out of her mouth.
There you
And
go.
so I was just like, whoa, okay, what else can I see?
There you go.
I started playing, and I did it a lot. I did it a lot.
Well, that's
And
pretty
that's what
cool.
I started doing before I would go to bed. Where can I go? What can I see? I would travel. That may be something that you want to play with. I always begin all of those sessions making sure that what I'm feeling is love, and what I am drawing to me, therefore, is love.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Thank you for so much for sharing that. I have a comment here from Austin, and Austin says, "I don't think we are meant to stay in the fifth dimension, and we are here in 3D for a reason." Which I agree. I think we're here to learn a lot of different lessons. And you can access the fifth while in meditation or prayer, but you cannot stay there. But if it also goes back to Mary Grace's comment about how aren't we sort of shifting. No, I think you already covered it, but just in case, is that sort of a situation where we're sort of, like you said, it's sort of limbo, kind of like back and forth, and then at some point when we've reached a certain level of consciousness or of a certain level of vibration, we can move into the fifth as a new human being? What do you think?
So I think for a lot of people, that is what is happening. We're in a transition where we are literally becoming a different type of human. And most of that transformation and transmutation is happening through the heart, and through photonic light. We're becoming more light beings. There is more light coming in. There is therefore more light and the ability to utilize light as a technology. That's in an organic way. There are also people who desire more of an experience of a third dimensional planet. Now, I listen to a lot of Alex Collier. I really love him. And Alex Collier always says we're on one timeline. We've got one timeline. And in a lot of ways, I think that's wishful thinking and that's programming. And it's great programming because it is a sort of like we're all going home. We're all going to the same place. We're all progressing together. But I also think there's more room. I mentioned the bifurcation earlier, and I believe because we are all such amazing creators, that we have choice about what we want to experience and where we're going in this lifetime and beyond. Some of us desire to go home. We're done
Yeah.
with the third dimension.
I think a lot of us are done. I think a
go
lot,
home.
especially a lot of star seeds, light workers, we're like, I am so done with the
It's not to
crazy.
say that the third dimension is bad.
No.
And there is a part of me that's super curious, right? So the third dimension, in the way that in the way that we have all experienced it here on this planet, comprehending that all of the dimensions exist in the same time and space. So you can be here as a third dimensional being and simultaneously have an experience of it fourth dimensionally, fifth dimensionally, 6th through 12th through, I like to say, 3rd through 5th through 12th and 23rd dimensions. Like, those things do exist. There are certain people who can tap into it. Just because some people can tap into it and others can't doesn't mean that it's not in existence.
Okay.
But think of how many of us there are on this planet. And therefore, how many more of us there are in the planet. Experiencing the planet from a 4th and 5th dimensional through 7th dimensional framework, right? What's reality for you is different than what's reality for me. what's reality for me isn't any better than what's reality for you. The third dimension isn't any less better than the fifth dimension. It's a different it's a different density of experience. So it depends on what it is that you desire to experience and what you're drawn to. Um, yeah.
But also, if you have certain life contracts that you have to experience. And, let's be honest, because one of the things that I've been saying to a lot of speakers that we've had on the show is that a lot of people who have the extrasensory perception or are really the starseeds that have had like a lot of the psychic abilities, a lot of us have gone through really crap. We've had really crappy childhoods. We've had some really, really rough times. And that's something that I find that I see very often with people who are starseeds and light workers is that we've been through a lot of crap. And so, excuse me. So that's a part of what it's about. But, we're here to learn that. And we're here to sort of work through that, I think. But I just want to sort of circle back to your experiences, as an experiencer. And you mentioned being on the craft. Can you describe what the craft looked like? And is this the craft of your star family, or is this a craft of the Greys? What craft are you on at this point, as a child?
So I've been on a couple different kinds of craft. And when I'm with my star family, I don't see the craft. I just see light. Yeah. And I also have had the experience where a few years just before COVID, the year before the pandemic, um, I was doing a bunch of work with a group of friends who were colleagues as well. And we were, Reiki master teachers, and we were doing ceremonial work together. We were traveling to interpret ceremonial work. We were doing a lot of things together, and we were friends. And so we were in constant contact with one another. And at one point, we were having experiences. We were having some pretty interesting overlapping experiences where we were seeing similar things, and we were talking about the things that we were seeing and the things that energetically we were clearing in Reiki sessions. And that led to somehow a conversation about how we might be able to meet in the aethers, that we had the ability to see into the fourth dimension. So why would we not be able to turn on our dormant DNA together? That as we understood ourselves to be co-creators, why couldn't we meet in the aethers if we so chose? So we decided to do some experimenting. And so the very first night that we experimented, what we decided was that we were going to utilize our dream time to meet in the aethers, and we would just see what happened, that we would all go to sleep intending to get together and have some kind of interaction that we would all remember. And my experience of that first night was that I had the intention, I fell asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up and I was on a gray craft.
Okay.
And I realized that I was in a gray craft because I was on a metallic, like, gurney. I was on a table. And there were other bodies in the room that I was in, and I was like, oh my God, my friends are here. What are we doing here? This is not where we were supposed to be. We're supposed to be this is not, no. And so I started calling to them and trying to wake them up. In the gurney closest to me was a friend, Nathan, and I started calling Nathan. I was like, Nathan, wake up. Nathan, you gotta wake up. And I could see beyond him, there were several of the others that were participating. There were, how many of us were doing it? I think there were 4 or 5 of us doing it. And I could see a few people, but I couldn't wake Nathan up. And then all of a sudden, a tall gray came into my space, and he came into my face. He came in really close and he yelled in my mind, you don't have permission to be here.
Oh.
And I yelled back, you don't get to tell me where the fuck I can and can't be.
Well, that gray got a mouthful. Oh my God.
But what happened was he picked me up. He grabbed my shoulders. He grabbed me by the shoulders. He picked me up, and he threw me through the wall of the craft.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, I found myself in space, like literally like this, right behind me. I was like, "Oh my God!" And it startled me so much because he threw me through the wall. That the startle, it was just a few minutes of being in space, and then I got sucked back into my body.
There you go.
And I woke up and I was like, holy crap, no, my friends are there. I gotta get back there. And I tried so hard, but I was so freaked out. And so like my heart was pumping. I was just like, how the hell do I get back there to get them off that ship? They're not supposed, that's not where we tried to go. Why did we end up on that ship? And then in the morning, we were texting one another, and Nathan had said, I hope it's okay that I'm naming him.
Well, we don't know his last name. Not know his last name. Anyways.
And so we were texting back and forth, and Nathan was the only one who remembered what happened. But he said, I said, oh my God, you guys, are you okay? What was your experience? And he said, well, I don't know if it worked, but I did dream that we were on an airplane, and everybody was on the airplane, but the only person who could hear me was you. And I kept trying to talk, you and I kept trying to talk to everybody else, but nobody else could hear us. And I was like, yeah, Nathan, that wasn't a plane. That definitely wasn't a plane. So we decided that we would try it again the next night, and we tried it again, and we wound up in the same place, and that same creep came into my face and said, I told you you couldn't be here. And he slapped my hand. He slapped my the back of my hand so hard that when I woke up startled, I had a red mark on my hand.
Oh, okay.
And I was livid because I was like, you don't, like, what are you doing to my friends? I was so angry, and I couldn't. And then Nathan had if I remember correctly, he had another dream about being on an airplane, and I was like, it wasn't an airplane. And why are you guys not conscious when we're there? What is the thing that is not allowing us to communicate? And then we may have tried another once or twice, but then gave up because nobody else was remembering what was happening. It was just Nathan and I that were conscious.
But you know, it's interesting because you talk about your childhood and you talk about how your father used to train you with the dreams. And even though it's technically, I mean, I assume is what it was for dreams, it trained your mind to be strong, and it trained you to actually remember. And because you're wired in such a way, you're going to remember things in a way that most people won't. So it doesn't surprise me that you were able to remember those things, and then your friends were like, oh, I don't understand. But in terms of being like you're having the mind wiped, you'd mentioned at one point when you were in the car, that whole experience about being shot out of the back of the car, and at one point your mom turned around and her eyes were black. What was that about? You said her mind was being wiped? Why were her eyes being black?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that her mind was being wiped.
Okay.
Because it was too obvious, right? Like what were we going to do with that information, right? And the cognitive dissonance that my friends were going through with, like, what did they see? I don't know. I don't actually even know what they saw, because they were just constantly like stuttering and freaked. And I was just trying to get them to calm down. And then also, like, what do you remember? What do you remember? And them having the hardest time spitting it out, that there was significant cognitive dissonance, right? This was when was this? This was the early that would have been what? the early 80s, the early 1980s.
Okay.
And I think it was just too freaky for people. Right? Like, I mean, I remember this one time I was a teenager and I was having a party. I used to have parties in the basement, and basement full of people, and our basement was furnished, and there was a bar scene. It was really freaky and disturbing. The dungeon theme that my father came up with to decor was all reds and blacks, but he had a full bar and he used to have massive parties down there with all work people. And but when I was a teenager, we had a bunch of parties down there, and at one party at one point, a glass moved from one end of the bar very slowly to the other end of the bar. And there were a few people who just, as it was happening, it was like, holy, and they just turned and walked away. Like, they just walked away because it's like, it's too much what do you, when that kind of stuff happens, many of us have experiences that we don't necessarily remember because the cognitive dissonance is too great.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily fit in with our worldview and our belief system, so we reject it.
Yeah, and the thing is also, who's going to believe me anyway, right?
Right.
If I go around and turn around and say, yeah, I saw this cup moving from, glass moving from one bar end of the bar to the other. Are you sure you weren't smoking or drinking a little too much? So you are going to be, dispelled as being either crazy or kook, that
Except that like 10 people saw it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then, or even just like, I had this one experience when I was a teenager when I was involved in theater, and we were all it was the closing night of a play that we were doing, and I don't remember which play it was. I can't remember if I was a junior or senior, but my best friend at that time had a car, and she had this big boat of a car, and after we got all out, we were going to pile into her car and drive to the beach and party and go partying. But when I tried to get into the car, I couldn't get into the car. And I literally physically couldn't get in the car. I tried all of the doors, and then my friends started to get impatient. And they were like, Ingrid, just get in the car. We got to go. And I was like, I can't. And they were like, what do you mean you can't? And I was like, have you not seen me try to get in the car? I can't get in the car. And then at one point, several people tried to push me in the door, and they couldn't. It was like this force field was preventing me. I was like I was bouncing off this force field. And no matter how hard they were trying to push me, and I was trying to push to get in the car, I couldn't get in the car. And so I finally gave up, and I was like, I'm obviously not supposed to go with you all. Leave already. Like, I don't know why I can't go, but I can't go. And I don't know why. I obviously can't get in the car. Like, it's that simple. And so they all took off, and I had to call my dad to come get me, and he was not happy. And the next day it sort of went through the high school. I heard like wildfire because they had a bit of a car accident.
Oh.
And I feel like, and I felt like when I talked to them, none of them were injured. It was mostly scary for them. But when I talked to them later, I felt like, and my best friend whose car it was felt like, had I gotten in the car, it would have been much worse.
Oh, okay.
So,
so your guardian angel was right on time, eh?
Random, just like lots. I mean, there was this one time where I was working in a theater, a movie theater, as a teenager, and I had a friend who had run away from home. She was staying with her dad because her mom had moved to Florida. She was staying with her dad, and we were gonna walk to her house, but it was across town, and the theater closed at like midnight, and it was like way too late for the two of us to be walking to her dad's house. It was not a good thing. And so as we were walking, I was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I was like, I need you guys, please come get us. Please come get us. Please come get us and bring us home. And all of a sudden, a car pulls up, and it was a couple of teenage women, and they had us get in the car, and they drove us to her house, and they dropped us off like a block away, and then they took off. And it was just like, was that a guardian angel, or was that happenstance? I don't really know.
Did you know these ladies? Did they even talk to you? They said, like, get in the car. Like, what happened exactly?
They just sort of showed up in a car and were like, you guys need a ride, get in. We'll take you home. And
okay.
We got in, and then we went home.
There you go.
And so, but it was literally like within moments of me requesting assistance.
Wow. Okay, but you're also very connected. You see, there's also that too, because when you're very connected, and this goes back to the concept of being able to manifest and also to create your own reality, you put out the intention, though.
And yet, I was told that I wasn't supposed to be doing stuff, right? Tricks. I wasn't supposed to be doing stuff. I wasn't supposed to be talking about what I could see and what I knew and what could happen. I wasn't supposed to bring to anyone's attention. And so there was a internal sense of like, I hope I don't get in trouble. Like, not supposed to do this.
Yeah.
But, and I don't, it's more of a like, as an adult, the things that I play with are like how much can I manipulate time, right? So like, how much can I play with, traffic. There's really bad traffic, but I'm just going to envision the traffic moving, or everything's always working out for me, right? This is Abraham Hicks 101. Yeah. Everything's working out for me and my highest good and healing and everyone around me. It's working out for everybody's best benefit. Things just always work out for me. It just happens. Like, things just work out better and better beyond my wildest dreams.
Exactly.
I totally believe that. And that's going to be a mantra. And so that's the mantra that I'm doing. I love you. I thank you. I love you. I thank you. I love you. I thank you. Like that part of Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
Creation and being able to travel without speeding in 11 minutes what should have taken me 40.
Yeah, I've heard about that though. I mean, with time being relative and all, I have heard about that where people said, look, they asked, especially if we're going to go into the whole domain of guardian angel, and asking, I need a favor. Can you please help me to get to where I need to go, XYZ, and I need to get there. I know it's going to should technically take 40 minutes, but they end up getting there in 10, 15.
Right.
Go figure. So,
So this is also the other thing, is that all of my life, when I have talked to people, or there have been people with me who have witnessed things, generally speaking, what people say to me is, nobody else would believe me. For some reason, you would believe me. I can do this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I know you can. Like, I know because I see you.
Exactly.
I know what you're capable of even more than you know what you're capable of. And I'm not supposed to talk about it. And when I say things, you look at me like I'm crazy. But I know things. And I know what you could do if you allowed yourself to do it. But people are so programmed. It's not like I feel like the thing about me is that I've always known. But it's not because I can do stuff that you can't. It's just that I've known about it.
Yeah. So you're not under the programming, but that's the thing. It's because you're not under the programming. And the thing is, I'm wondering, it's funny because I'm wondering if there was a situation where I'd like to see this sort of experiment be done where you have a child that's raised to believe that they can walk on water. Yes. And I mean, I'm wondering, could you possibly walk on water? See, we're told, no, you can't walk on water because, no, you're too heavy. No.
Oh,
and
okay.
imagine.
So Dan Winter. Dan Winter, physicist, has a YouTube channel,
Okay.
is working. Who did I first hear about it? I might have first heard about it via Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala, but I'm pretty sure that it's Dan that is, because he lives in France and is connected with schools where Dan talks a lot about the schools and the programs that they are working with. There's all these schools. Where are they? I've seen the videos. All these children who are being in school, not in the United States, definitely not in the United States, but all these children who are being taught how to read books while blindfolded, how to move objects with their minds, because children exist in that place of possibility.
Exactly.
They're not being programmed into believing it out of them, right? When you were
Exactly.
a child, you had wild experiences that you told your parents and you told your family about, and they programmed it out of you.
Exactly.
These children are not having it programmed out of them. They're being encouraged and they're being trained and they're being taught. I actually had a gentleman that I used to do some work with. He was a shaman, and he said to me, he said, I'm so saddened by the fact that had you been born into a indigenous culture, you would have been trained from the time that you were a little
Yeah,
one, because
exactly.
your gifts are obvious and you would have been seen and recognized and
Exactly.
trained.
Exactly.
You didn't experience training, right? Although I did at one point, I did at one point have an older couple when I was a teenager. I was like 14 years old. And my parents, I was upstairs with a friend, and my parents called me downstairs because they had somebody that they wanted to introduce me to. And I was just like, oh, like this happens so much with them. Who else am I supposed to meet? But I came down and it was this older couple, and I was just like, you guys are Americans. You're not German. Who are you? What's going on? What's going on? Who are you? And they sat quietly and politely, and my mom brought cake, and my mom was a total homemaker, and cake and coffee, homemade cake and coffee, and served everyone. And we kind of sat there, and I was like looking around like, what the heck's going on? And all of a sudden both my parents just stood up and walked out of the room and then went into the basement. And I was like, okay, that was weird. And the moment they were out of earshot, the woman in the older couple, and they were older than my parents, the woman leaned forward. Her name was Eleanor, and she said, I know this may sound crazy, but I've been led to you. You need help, and I need to work with you.
Wow.
And I said, okay.
Okay,
And she said, I
lady.
need you to come to my house. Do you think you can do that? And I said, yeah. All right. I got to know where you live. And she said, I'll give you my address. I need you to come over tomorrow after school. And I said, okay. And so she gave me the address, and I figured out where it was. And it was, just about 4 or 5 blocks from where I went to high school. And I walked to her house, and I went in, and she sat me in the living room, and she and her husband brought me some loose leaf tea, and she read my tea leaves and proceeded to tell me that she was a psychic, and that her guides had told her that there was a young girl who needed help, and that would have been me. And they instructed her to go to this place where my parents went to regularly, and that they would meet a couple, and they would know who they were by the fact that they talked about their children. And my parents talked about us all the time. So they identified my parents pretty quickly. And then, because my parents were so open and social, they immediately invited them in. And because what Eleanor and Harold said to my parents was, we'd love to meet your children. And they were like, come on over, you can meet them. And so what ended up happening was she was completely trustworthy. She was a really good human being. And she began working with me. I would go to her house a couple times a week after school. I would walk there and then I would go home. She would read my tea leaves and she started instructing me. And within a couple weeks, she started showing up in dream time and she was instructing me in dreams.
Wow.
And she was helping me defeat the darkness because there was a battle for my soul. Because I was so angry with human beings and distraught by the unconsciousness of humans that there were times where I was just like, just blow them all up. They're not worth it. They're unconscious. They don't care. They're horrible to each other. They treat each other badly. They're out for themselves. There's no hope.
Yeah.
I am here to tell you there's no hope. And so I needed help because I was starting to get really, really, really depressed. And so she helped me.
That's
And
really
she helped me
incredible.
figure out how to hold my own and how to begin fighting back in dream time, and how to protect myself.
Okay, wow, that's really interesting, and let's want to sort of go to a comment that we have here, an interesting comment I have here from Autumn. Hi, Autumn, and she says here, this is a very left field question. She says, I don't know, I don't want to distract from the current messages, but it's so good that. Do you know anything about the gateway experience? She said, particularly in relation to the theory about the CIA and the association with GATE, Gifted and Talented Education Program. I heard a sample of the tapes and it's triggered a recognition as clear as day. And it's funny because I'm reading that comment and for those of you who watched Stranger Things, 11, remember that whole thing with 11 being tested because she had a lot of gifts? That's sort of what it's reminding me of. Sorry, did you want to comment on this Gateway project, the CIA?
Yes. Yes, the Gateway Project. So I don't know if you are familiar with the GSIT crew, if you're familiar with Tony Rodriguez, if you're familiar with Journey to Truth, if you're familiar with my suggestion would be to check out SSPs. Tony is a really great one to check out. He actually teaches classes in remote viewing. You can access him via Patreon. I think that he was just recently talking about moving into another platform where he's starting a YouTube channel specifically for accessing information. But he teaches remote viewing, and
What's his name again? Sorry, what's his name? For people,
his name is Tony Rodriguez.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay.
So RIDGI Rod RIDGUES.
Gues?
Yes,
Yeah.
Rodriguez. He's
Yeah.
Portuguese, not Spanish.
Rodriguez. Okay.
It's not Rodriguez. It's
No?
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Okay.
Rodriguez. Yeah. And TonyRodriguez.com. Like, is how you can find him.
Okay.
And also the Gateway project is about us there. So it's rooted in very specific MK Ultra mind control program for children, and Tony is a survivor of those programs.
Okay.
And so there are some of those tapes. I would be careful with anything that you find online that you are utilizing to enter another state of consciousness. I know that binaural beats are really helpful. Just be careful because subliminal messaging is effective. And if you know what's there, it's not effective. But the thing about its effectiveness means that you don't know what's there. Yeah, I'm not sure what else you want to know about it specifically, but it's absolutely related to the MK Ultra and the Secret Soldier programming, Montauk Project. a lot of, what I said earlier about voice of God technology, and when I think that they were getting a handle on it in the early, well, they were probably getting a handle on it earlier, but testing it out, I feel like I tapped into something when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I had an experience where I was in a deep sleep, and all of a sudden somebody was calling my name, and I heard them, a woman's voice was calling my name, woke me up from a dead sleep, and I had my bed situated so that my face was like in the window. So when I woke up, my face was leaning on the window. My pillow was right there, and I was leaning on the window, and I could see the moon. And it was a woman's voice, and she was talking, and she kept saying, "Ingrid, Ingrid, I need you to wake up. Ingrid, wake up." And I was like, "Who's talking to me?" Who exactly is talking to me? And she said, "Ingrid, I'm your mother." And I was like, "You're my mother. I'm looking at the moon." And she said, "Yes, I'm your mother, and I need you to listen to me." And I was just like, "You're the moon and you're my mother, and I'm supposed to believe that."
Okay. Did you think she was on the
Right.
moon? Would you think she was on the moon, maybe, or?
Right. No, no. But a few years later, I saw the movie, which became one of my favorite movies, with Alan Arkin. It was called Simon. It was a TV miniseries, I think, or a movie. It might just have been a movie where there's government experiments on this poor guy, Alan Arkin, and they name him Simon. His name is Simon, and they mind wipe him and regress him to the amoeba stage by putting him in a water flotation tank. And they reprogram his mind, and they tell him that his mother is a toaster, and they utilize it with it's like a staged, it's like the early version of oh, what's that movie? What's the name of the popular movie with where he doesn't know he's in a movie?
Oh, the Truman Show.
The Truman Show.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was the earlier version of Truman Show. It had Alan Arkin in it, and it was popular in the 70s. And so in the 70s and the 80s. And so when I saw that movie, and they were like talking to him through a microphone, scientists in the other room hiding, talking to him through a microphone, saying, "Simon, I'm your mother." And so he's talking to this toaster, because this toaster is telling him that she is his mother. And I just had this flashback to the experience, and I was like, who did that? Like, who was that? Somebody woke me up. Somebody woke me up and tried to convince me that they were on the moon, and that they were my mother, and that I had to listen to them, and I had to pay attention. And in the moment I was annoyed, and I got sarcastic, and I rolled over, and I went back to sleep. But it's always been this thing that's bugged me. Like, what else has happened to me that I don't remember?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I remember so much. Could there be stuff that I don't recall? And I sought out Tony to try to, and I worked with Tony for like a year. I took his classes, and decided that, I taught myself to remote view when I was a kid. His approach was fascinating. I get a lot of information. I get too much information. I get too much information. But remote viewing is not for me, but Tony's great. And
Okay.
I highly recommend reading his books and looking into it, and know that along with all of the other information that's getting declassified, that information is probably going to take a while to be truly declassified, because there's still so much of the Montauk gateway stuff is still redacted. Most of it is redacted, but because Tony went through it and he remembers it, he is sharing a lot that you can access through the books that he's published.
Okay.
So Stuart Colony, get Series Colony and start there.
Okay. Well, we're coming to a little, I think, towards the end. If people have more questions, they can ask Ingrid some questions. I just wanted to sort of just sort of wrap this up a bit. We started with your experience as a child and the subsequent experiences afterwards. Right here and now, are you still having experiences with your star family? Like what? So we learned about what happened with you as a child. Right now, as an adult, right here and now, what can you tell us about like the evolution of your experiences with your star family, or these gray beings, or what, or I'm not clear why these beings were chasing you though. The gray beings, I'm not really sure what happened. They seem to be real jerks. What's happening with that?
Yeah. So there was a collusion, right, between them and our government.
Okay.
And The Sands of Time is a really great series to read by Sean David Morton. That's full of information. Dr. Sala has lots of information. JP is an insider who is sharing lots of information. There's so much disclosure that's happening. But the last time that I was with my light family took place probably, I want to say 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, where I was with them again, very unexpectedly. And it was blissful. It was blissful. But I access a lot of information most through lucid dreaming.
Okay.
So I access a lot of information through lucid dreaming. Most of the stuff that I am doing in my life is trying to figure out how to help more people in the work that I'm doing with, being a Biofield tuner, and then also working with conscious technologies, working out of a healing center, being present for being present as a sign language interpreter, doing the best that I can while I'm in this human body to assist people in waking up by living and walking my talk to the best of my ability. I feel like most of the work that I have had to do in my lifetime has been to transform who I was into who I want to be, who the world could have created, as opposed to who I remember I have the potential to become. I desire an intergalactic society where people, all beings in, on, around the planet and in the galaxy are free and as joyful as they can possibly be. I want us to remember how to heal ourselves. I want us to have access to what has been hidden. I want us to truly know what our history is, and to be able to, if we so choose, live on a third dimensional planet that is not taken over and where we're enslaved.
But we're breaking free of that though, no?
We are, but the ability to experience the third dimension freely, to develop our consciousness and our abilities naturally, organically, is what many people came to this planet to experience. And then once they got here, they got hijacked.
Yeah.
That's done. And so now people have choice. There's lots of places in the galaxy that need assistance. There are lots of beings on this planet that need assistance. There are still, there could potentially be, how long it takes us to get to the society where we're living intergalactically and we're living freely and we're living joyfully and we're, experiencing ourselves in a joyful, supportive way is what so many of us desire. And to get there from where we are is going to require more people becoming more conscious.
Which
So
they
I feel
are.
like I'm here to help that to the best of my ability by walking my talk
Yeah.
and learning how to be less judgmental, learning how to remember more, learning how to play more and to explore more, to be seen for being a starseed, for talking about my experiences, not because they're more amazing or because I am somehow unique. I think so many of us are going to remember more. And more and more and more, and that's what I'm here to participate in.
And for that, we're grateful. Thank you so much.
Aw,
Yeah, we are. And
I'm
just be
so grateful for you, Crystal,
thank
to
you.
ask me to talk about my experiences and to have this
Absolutely.
channel. Quantum Portals is an amazing channel,
Thank
and you
you.
have an amazing idea. You have amazing ideas about what you are hoping to accomplish with this
Yeah, I
channel,
know.
and I hope that I a little way.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And before we finish up for the evening, we have Mary Grace who's asking again, Tony, how do you spell Tony's last name? It's Rodrigue. I think it's Rodrigues. Rodrigue?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
Tony Rodrigue. And last but not least, and I think it'd be a great way to sort of finish the evening, I wanted to know what is a Biofield tuner and if you could sort of play your tuning forks for us before we close
I
up this
am
evening.
Biofield tuner. I have tuning forks. Have
Yeah.
forks will travel. So this is the Biofield tuning, biofieldtuning.com. I used to be on this website as a practitioner. I don't my membership may have lapsed, so I don't know if I'm still there, but I'm a biofield tuner. I'm a certified biofield tuner, and I work with tuning forks in the field around the body. I love to work remotely. So I work over Zoom, and I have a massage table set up. I used to be a massage therapist, but I stopped doing that because I like this more, and much less laundry to do. And I don't have to worry about the oils. So biofield tuning utilizes tuning forks and frequency in and around the body to work in your consciousness field. It's also called the auric field. Your biofield is your consciousness, and that's where your body resides. The teacher that created biofield tuning, Eileen McCusick, who I trained with, she came up with theories around the idea that the biofield is actually the blueprint for the body. So everything that has happened to you can be discovered as a frequency within that biofield. So we work around the body with tuning forks that create a coherent frequency. And we utilize an approach that allows us to find any areas of incoherence in and around your body with the aid of the tuning forks, because when we encounter anomalous energy or consciousnesses or a period of incoherence, the tuning forks do something different. They suddenly have an overtone and an undertone, or the sound disappears, or it screams, it shrieks. You can actually hear fear in the fork. I can feel it when I work with people. And so we're working in the field around the body to discover those areas of incoherence and to bring coherence to the body. The body right? So it entrains to the coherence in the fork. So because the fork in and of itself is creating coherence, the body recognizes the incoherence when the fork screams and is like, oh, I don't want to feel that anymore. I want to feel coherence. And so the anomalous experience in your timeline breaks up and then sort of moves along as that incoherence gets worked out.
Okay.
And we bring that part of you back to yourself. So it's a bit like shamanic practice. It's called soul retrieval.
Okay, yeah.
Where we're finding that part of you that through some kind of trauma or
Broke off, I think, eh? Like pieces.
experience,
Yeah.
you left part of yourself behind. So we're bringing that home so that you're much less triggered in your life. You're able to experience things for in and of themselves, undoing the programming. Yeah, I do that remotely and in person.
Okay. Well, that's great. So, you know what? I just wanted to sort of give a message to everybody, and then we can close off the evening with a Biofield
With
tuning. How about that?
a little bit of
About
coherence.
coherence. So I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And I wanted to say thank you, Ingrid. I really, really appreciate you coming here tonight and talking about your experience. It is absolutely incredible and amazing, and I think it really sort of helps people to feel that they're not alone, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are experiencers, and you are all a part of this experience. We're all moving together towards a much better world. So I know that right now it seems kind of crazy, but we're all in this together. And I also want to invite people, if you're hearing about us for the first time, the Star Season Lightworkers Collective. I'll put some information down below. And if you're watching this video and you really enjoy it, please, guys, I hate this whole sort of like self-promotion thing, but please give a thumbs up. And please subscribe, because the more subscribers, the more we can bring you this sort of content. So if you're just sitting here and you're watching, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe, like, and, let us know.
Share the page.
I know, and share the page. Share the page as well. So I also want to say a shout out from Susie Lobeck. Hi, Susie. How are you doing, Susie? How are you doing? And so I'm really glad to hear from you. So again, like and subscribe, and share this page. And we look forward to seeing you in the next presentation. We have another presentation coming up on Friday with Maureen Morgan about the South Pacific statues and their relations to ETs. So you don't want to miss that one. But we're going to come back, and I want to say thank you again, Ingrid, for everything. And just want to ask everybody to close their eyes and to find a very comfortable position as we close out this evening with Ingrid. So Ingrid, I'll let it up to you.
Okay, so take a couple of deep breaths and just imagine feel into your heart. You can even just smile at your own heart and its amazingness. And imagine that your heart energy is expanding and moving out. And that from the center of the Milky Way galaxy comes this massive column of light, like an umbilical cord. And that column of light moves out from the center of the Milky Way galaxy directly from Source, and it travels out to the far reaches of those spiral arms to where our solar system is located. And that life force energy, that source love and light, travels through our sun, down above the head, and just begins to shower your body in golden white sunlight. And it trickles down in through the crown, in through and around your body, like this massive column, this massive umbilical cord of light just showers on down, all the way down the body and out the bottoms of the feet. Just imagining source love light above you, beneath you, at your back and to your front, to the sides and to the angles, flowing to you and flowing through you and emanating out of you. As it travels down through the feet, it travels down out the bottoms of the feet and down into the earth through all of her layers, right to the heart of Mother Earth, the sun within the earth. Just imagining embracing Mother Earth and dancing with her. And in that joyful dance, the reverberation of energies coming back up along that channel, like an umbilical cord of light. The Schumann resonance is shooting up through all of the layers and moving back up that same channel. And with your breath and with your mind, you can see the ebb and the flow of those energies always moving in, through, and around the body, always connected to the heart of Mother Earth and always connected to Source through the sun, holding you, feeding you, replenishing, clearing and cleaning, clearing and cleaning, clearing and cleaning. If you imagine that circle, that energy moving out from the heart, moving across the room, expanding and taking up the space in the entire room that you exist within, it's getting larger and larger and larger. It can get as large as you possibly can imagine. It can engulf the entire planet, the galaxy, extending and connecting with all of the beings in, on, and around the planet, in, on, and around the galaxy, from a place of love and a place of gratitude and a place of connection and humility, creativity and joy, making a connection, possibly asking for mentorship, or grounding deep into the earth, connecting with all of the trees and the tree roots, the crystals and the inner earth, the sand and the water. There's so much beauty and so much amazingness to be connected to here on the planet, as well as to the star families that are here to work with us and assist us in achieving beyond our wildest expectations freedom, love, healing, and sovereignty. Just breathing that in and breathing that out. And breathing that in. And with the exhalation, releasing all that no longer serves our highest good and healing. And with one final ding of the fork, closing the channels, shields up, standing in our power, standing in our glory, and standing in love. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Thank you. Love. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon, and see you on the flip side. Take care.